I had created a little small software company. It was doing great. And then we had a bug that just had a massive data corruption on the database, and the thing went out of business overnight. It was game over. When I was a millionaire in my early 20s on paper, and then it literally killed the business overnight. We would see Microsoft would come out with a big announcement, and everybody goes, "Oh, we're dead.
Shaking in their boots.
Microsoft is doing this." And all Microsoft did was validate the market.
Yes.
And it created lots of opportunity for lots of small motorboats around the edges. I think this is going to last 10 years. The segment we're in right now is moving so fast. We're going to move to the next phase within about 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years, which is the autonomous economy. It's agentic. So no longer are people, because we're still getting paid for doing things, even though we're leveraging knowledge. The next phase is people won't get paid. It's robots that get paid. It's the autonomous agents. And so the value that's going to be created is not going to come from labor. It's going to come from this agentic AI. Then the value flows back to the cap table. So the cap table and the investors are going to make all of the money. So wealth is going to be hyper concentrated because humans aren't going to be working in many of these industries. And you say, oh, it's not going to happen. Oh, it's already happening.
Welcome back to the Startup Ignition Ventures podcast, Bootcamp podcast, and Tool Suite podcast. We are very excited to have you today. Thank you for tuning in. If you watched the last episode, we really appreciate it. We've had amazing guests on this podcast. So you're not just bored of me and my dad here every episode after episode. Today, we have a very special guest. We have Paul Ahlstrom, who is someone I am very excited to talk to and learn more about his background and his history, because he goes so far back and deep-rooted into the VC ecosystem here in Utah, and also just the tech community abroad, and even going down to Latin America. So today we have Paul Ahlstrom on the podcast. He is a serial entrepreneur, investor, and author who has dedicated his career to helping early-stage startups just succeed. He has founded multiple high-tech companies and venture funds across the U.S. and Latin America, including vSpringCapital, Alta Growth Capital, Alta Ventures, and then we just talked about Northgate Fund, which is a $225 million fund of funds down in Mexico, and Crelo, which is Peru's first corporate venture fund. Through these funds, Paul has raised over $1.5 billion in capital and invested in more than 90, probably over 100 startups, including 150 startups, including Ancestry.com, Landesk, Alturas, and many more, and especially down in Latin America.
One of the great OGs of Utah. One of the first guys I met when I came to Utah.
Yeah, but before being an investor, Paul was even an operator and entrepreneur himself. I learned about this with Knowlix, which was an awesome venture-backed software company that you started and exited. You've also co-authored the foundational startup book, Nail It, Then Scale It, and you continue to mentor founders all day, every day. That is what he's hyper focused on. Paul is undoubtedly recognized as one of the key architects of Utah VC, Utah tech, and all over the country and abroad.
Our listeners and viewers are in for a treat.
Yeah. Yep. So welcome, Paul, to the podcast. Thank you so much for coming. We know you're a busy guy. You just got back from Latin America, like yesterday or the day before?
On Saturday.
So you're experiencing probably a little bit of jet lag here.
Yeah, I landed at 10 in the morning, and then I showered and went to the game.
There you go. That was an important thing to come back for.
And a good game.
Yeah, he's talking about the BYU-Utah game, one of the biggest rivalries, the holy war of Utah. Again, Paul is seriously one of the most kind of star-studded VCs. We were just talking before we started filming about your history in so many of the VC venture capital groups and funds here locally in the state. You were there when a lot of them were formed, investing and heavily involved. But prior to going into VC, I want to go all the way back to your background and your operations and your actual entrepreneurial pursuits, because I didn't even know about Knowlix here, and it apparently was an amazing success for you. And that's how you got started. So, but before we do that, I do have one thing I want to do I want to spring on you a little bit, Paul. We do an icebreaker on the podcast, which is just something we do real quick before every episode. And it's just something I'm going to spring on you. We're going to play Pivot or Persevere. How do you feel about that? I'm going to give you a startup scenario.
Okay.
And you tell me if you would pivot or you would persevere. Okay. And I want you to participate
All right,
too.
we'll do too.
I got 2 lean startup gurus here. How could I not take advantage of this situation? Okay.
Is this a real life scenario?
No, this is a made up one. So I reviewed these. I think they're pretty good, but we'll see. Okay. Here we go.
Right.
Here's the first scenario. Okay. Where we have paying customers, but it's not really scaling. So you launched a startup 6 months ago. Your MVP has 20 paying customers who really like your product. They give you glowing testimonies and they would be devastated if it disappeared. But they're all small businesses. They're not generating you a lot of revenue. Your total addressable market is smaller than you thought. And every new customer requires a very high touch onboarding to your software. Are you pivoting away or are you persevering?
Easy pivot.
Why are you pivoting?
I've already been there and done that multiple times.
Too small of a market is a no-no?
Yeah, we did a company called Screeny in Mexico, which was the first applicant tracking system. Great entrepreneur, great team. We got out to about 100 customers. But the cost of closing the sale versus the cost of revenue from the customers versus the retention, it wasn't scaling. And Mexico, and a category that exists in the United States.
That was flourishing too, probably.
Major category, hundreds of competitors. So brand new category doesn't exist. So we think, let's go create that. Turns out the U.S. category is created by regulation. There's other factors that were cultural, while this wasn't really working. So my only customers were Lowe's and Home Depot and Coca-Cola. So I had big customers.
U.S. companies.
U.S. brands. Of course we want this here. Absolutely. And I couldn't get the Mexican companies to buy.
Yeah.
And so we ran out of runway. And so we've done that a couple of times. I had another company that was generating revenue. We created a fintech app in the U.S. and we had a few customers. But the cost of sales and onboarding was so expensive.
Yeah.
It wasn't scaling. So yeah. So
kind of the lifetime value to customer acquisition cost, the LTV to CAC, it didn't work.
It didn't pencil out.
Yeah.
So we ended up just pulling the plug.
And my answer is pivot as well. For the same reasons.
Really?
Yes.
The small market won't do it.
I mean, if that entrepreneur wanted to have a lifestyle business and have a couple employees and he owns the whole thing.
Okay, let me throw another scenario at you. I like this one. Okay, you ready? You've been building for a year. You raised $500,000 in a pre-seed round and have early traction in a very niche workflow space. Okay. Then one morning you wake up and see that a well-funded YC startup just launched a nearly identical product. Slicker brand, bigger marketing budget, overlapping features. Your current customers aren't leaving, but new signups stall really, really hard. Your team's morale dips, and your lead investor says maybe it's time to rethink the niche. What are you doing? Are you pivoting or are you persevering?
I don't buy the scenario.
You don't buy the scenario?
No.
You don't think an entrepreneur would be shaken by a competitor popping up like a YC-backed, well-funded startup? I think that's pretty real.
I want to hear more.
I don't buy it. So a competitor comes in the market. If it's a good market, it's a big market. There's lots of room in the marketplace. There's a validation. Yeah. Back in the day, this happened all the time to us. We would see Microsoft would come out with a big announcement.
Yeah.
And everybody goes, "Oh, we're dead."
Shaking in their boots.
Microsoft is doing this, and all Microsoft did was validate the market.
Yes.
And it created lots of opportunity for lots of small motorboats around the edges. Now, why see great company? Great.
Accelerator.
Probably great accelerator, probably going to create, good companies out of there. But they're not going to own the market 100%. What company owns a market 100%? Right. Zero. 0.00. So, you have validation in this space by a well-backed company. You're out ahead of this. And, you just need to find your area. And this literally happened to me in a company I'm working on right now.
Yeah.
Sequoia came in and funded a $30 million round.
Yeah.
We were celebrating.
Because it's validation. Yeah. So you're saying persevere. You are pushing through.
Yeah.
Well, you just got market validation. Yeah. And on a sector that you're building a company in, unless you're going to be a snowflake and just tip over. Yeah. Lean in and find your niche and your purpose in that space.
And I'm persevere too. And what that tells me is other smart money is chasing the same customer.
Yeah.
I'm now going to go win in the field of competition. I'm going to have a better product and I'm going to win.
I think this is a learning. This is a learning lesson for a lot of entrepreneurs that are listening, because I feel like a lot of entrepreneurs, especially my generation and below, like whenever we were building and a new startup came out, oh, they just raised $20 million, like, and you just think, okay, now I'm just fighting for my life. No, I think your guys' mentality of that's validation that smart money is going into the market and actually pursuing what you're already pursuing.
It's a slide in our boot camp. And I said, hey, you go to Google and you find there's 4 competitors and they're better funded than you. That's showing there's a market.
Cool. I like it. That's great.
If your investor is, nervous because somebody else invested in the same space, you probably got the wrong investor.
Yeah. If they're pushing you to get out,
so go trade up.
Yeah, there you go.
Okay, there you go.
Okay, well,
you have one of the old Utah Angels.
Those guys were cutthroat. That's what I heard.
We were mean.
Yeah, you guys were mean. People were scared to get in a room with you guys. Okay, last scenario, because I'm liking this. Okay, I'm going to do one more. Is that okay?
It's just free consulting day.
Yeah. I wish these were real startups. I should have gone to our community and actually grabbed real scenarios.
Yeah.
Okay, here we go. Last one. Third scenario. Here we go. You spent months building a product based on customer interviews. So you did some validation. When you finally launch, you get a rush of signups from a big influencer shout out, 1,000 users in 2 days. But within a month, only 5% of those users are still active. No one's paying. Feedback is all over the place. Love it, but ... Your team's debating whether you hit the wrong audience, bad onboarding, or flawed core assumption. What are you doing? Pivoting or persevering?
So how many customers do I have?
So there was 1,000 people that onboarded from a big influencer shout out,
5%?
And only 5% of those users are even still active.
Great. What's going on with them?
Yeah, so you would dive into the 5%.
Well, if I have 5% of the users, so I accidentally got 1,000 people.
Yeah.
We found 5% that like us. Then I would just do a reverse analysis on the 5%, go deep. Why are they using us?
Yeah.
What's unique about this? Is there a bigger niche out there? Or did I find,
something unique, unique.
Purple hair,
Yeah.
I essentially agree with Paul, because I don't think you're at the pivot or persevere question yet. You have to say why.
Analyze
He's asking
more.
Why is 5%? What's going on with them? What do they say? So you have to do more validation before you can decide pivot or persevere.
I like it. So this is not pivot or persevere. It's keep validating,
more validation,
and talking data.
Oh, that's just, you just got going and, you had some fluke that happened. Great.
Yeah.
But understand why the 5% stay. That's interesting.
Yeah.
Because getting those first customers on board is gold.
Yeah.
So if they're staying and they're paying,
Yeah.
that's 50 customers. Let's go.
Yeah, I love it. That's awesome. I love it. Okay.
I would probably change my narrative. We just started. We got 50 customers.
Yeah, it's 1,000, only 50 back. Yeah. You got to spin it in the entrepreneurial way. Okay. Thank you for playing my icebreaker. That was great. Yeah, that was free consulting for fake scenarios. But hey, I loved it, and hopefully the listeners and viewers enjoyed it too. Okay, so let's go back, because you guys were just talking before the podcast. I said, save it for the podcast, how you guys met and where that was. Because my dad made a comment. I was Tyler's age when I met Paul.
Yeah.
I
think I remember the moment, but you might remember another moment. But we were at the BYU Entrepreneurship
e-business center.
E-business center. Kevin Rollins had just put some money in with his wife.
Yep.
And what was
Kevin Rollins, the former co-CEO of Dell Computers.
Of Dell Computers. They just put some money in. They rebranded this the Kevin and Deborah Rollins e-business center.
Right.
And I was asked to be on the advisory board of that. And I would sit in the back of the room with Mark Bonham and Sid, and we would just make fun. We would be like school kids in the back of the room shooting spitballs.
Yeah.
And then John was trying to keep control of the room.
I remember that.
Wait, as a student?
No. He was on the advisory board.
I was a full.
He saw Sid Tetro, him, and Mark Bonham, who's a Wilson Sonsini attorney.
One of the top attorneys in Utah.
Yeah.
And we would just sit in the back,
And all of you guys were on for years on that advisory board. So that was great.
Making fun and pretending we were in high school again.
As you know, you were 14 when we moved here. So my company went public. I retired, quote unquote. BYU calls them, says, come down and help us do stuff. And I came down here, met great people like Paul. And Paul's been super helpful at BYU. Everything we did, totally supportive, and has always been supportive of anything I've ever done or what we've looked at.
We've done a lot,
and vice versa. I think I've supported you.
You have. We did a lot of crazy things together. Over the years. And I remember walking across campus one day, you, me, and Josh James.
Yes.
And Josh James was still mycomputer.com. And he's like, would you guys mentor me? And I just remember that moment. We're walking around.
Yeah.
Did you tell him yes or no?
Yeah.
I'm sure you said yes.
No.
No.
Josh was great.
Yeah.
I went to his office a few times and until his CFO would mock me. And I'm like,
He went through a few CFOs, by the way, in the early days.
So you guys met at the E. Rollins Entrepreneurship Institute or Center.
The center for, here's what's funny. We talk about this all the time. Every time there's something new, colleges make a new center for it. But it's funny. The e-business center was hot and heavy in the dot-com era. But a few years later, after the dot-com era, everybody goes, well, e-business is business. Everybody's going to do e-business. So they merged it into the Entrepreneurship Center and it all became one.
Yeah.
And that's the same thing. Like right now, it'd be silly to make a center for artificial intelligence because every single company in the world is going to use artificial intelligence, right?
Yeah.
So,
okay, so then take me back even earlier there. Like, how do you get to that advisory board, and what do you do earlier in your career with Knowlix, like we talked about in your bio? Like, what was that?
yeah, were you a student entrepreneur when you did that, or later? Okay,
yeah. No.
but you did a lot of entrepreneurial things as a student.
Where'd you go to school?
BYU.
Yeah, and what'd you study? What was your
I
undergrad?
prefer not to say.
Hey, Josh James was a theater major, was he not?
I'm just kidding. I was a communications major.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, PR and advertising.
Cool.
What are some of the entrepreneurial things you did in college? 'Cause I remember some of those stories.
I got to BYU and I was very disappointed because I was expecting this entrepreneurial. Well, I was expecting certain things to happen at BYU. I was hoping there's going to be an entrepreneurship class, which there wasn't.
Yeah.
And so but going back before that, every 2 years since I was a kid, I would I was one of those kids that just, I had the lemonade stand, then I had a skateboard making business, then I had a window washing business, then I had a lawn mowing business, then I would just basically, and I built up I bought a pool service business when I was 17, sold those when I went on my mission at 19, and graduated from high school early. I just had two companies, the landscaping and the pool, and actually I had a sprinkler company. And sold those, came off my mission, and then I came back to BYU, and I was really disappointed. Like I was expecting a certain thing, and it just wasn't there. So I spent my time in college fixing my college experience. So Mark Tullis and I, we created, and Bill Kelly and Roger Leishman, they created the Student Review newspaper. And so years later, when there was nobody covering tech in Utah, I called Mark up, and a friend of mine sold his company for $1 billion, and Finicity, Nick Thomas, and he was a co-founder there. And I said, this is ridiculous. You got $1 billion exit, and nobody's covering this thing. And so I said, Mark, we need to get the band back together and go create Tech Buzz. And so so Mark and I were back in college, very good friends through all of college, and then we got the band back together.
So you guys did a news thing in college, and now you're doing it for the tech world in Utah.
Exactly.
And by a big shout out, techbuzz.news is the URL, and we're super believers in it.
Yeah,
and I was so happy when that started up, and I think it covers things really well.
Mark does a fantastic job, doesn't he?
I forgot to add that to your bio. Another thing to add to your bio.
Yeah, so we just changed the URL. It's techbuzz.news works. It's also techbuzznews.com.
Oh, okay. So techbuzznews.com?
It took a long time for Google to pick up the .com. So
okay, got it.
But it did. And so I just did startups. And so we did a newspaper. I did a dance club called Ivy Tower.
That's what I remember, the dance club.
Dance club?
And then, it was fun.
Was it disco?
This was after disco.
Yeah, I was going to say, you're later than disco.
You were into grunge.
Yeah. Bananarama was like, I remember that was one of the songs. Ball of Confusion. We had, it was the 80s. It was the best dance music in the history of the planet.
Yeah.
And people actually danced back then. And we had bands come in. We had Book of Love come in and play. And then we did, then after that, I created a college hangout, created a comedy club called Backstage, and a jazz club, comedy club called Backstage Cafe. And it was an absolute blast. And then what did I do after that? I don't know.
How old are you when you started Knowlix?
I was 30.
Okay, so you had
30.
so you were going to school, so you spent about 5 years after school or so,
how did you make that jump from all these kind of, honestly, very mom and pop kind of services based companies into technology?
Yeah, that's That is a great question. I had a water purification service business in Southern California. I was making about $120,000 a year servicing these units of a company called Pure Water International. And then Bob, the CEO of Pure Water, the manufacturer, just said, listen, I was in his office one day. He goes, you seem like a really bright kid, just making stuff up. But he said, this is not ever going to take you anywhere.
Yeah.
You know that, right? I said, what do you mean? He said, you have 24 hours in the day. You can build rocket ships or you can dig ditches.
Yeah.
Wouldn't it be more fun to go to the moon? I said, I don't know what you mean. He said, because I'm like, rocket ships. I mean, back in this was in the the 80s.
Great mentor advice.
Yeah.
And nobody was talking about building rocket ships back then. And now we're doing it, right? But I just said, what do you mean? He said, well, you can spend 24 hours a day doing something. Why don't you work on something that's meaningful? And I'd never been given permission to think big. So I had a string of really small, uninteresting projects, one after another. Well, I mean, the dance club was great because you got to meet girls.
There's some ulterior motives there, but yes.
It's a great college thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. But other than that, there was no real purpose to those. Lots of interesting small business lessons learned. So I went home from there. I gave the keys to my brother, Marv. I said, this is your business. You can keep it, kill it. I don't care. And I had 2 classes I needed to take to go back and graduate from BYU. Because I'd taken them in Southern California, but for whatever reason, they wouldn't accept my transfer credit. So I'm like, it's just hanging over my head. So I went back to BYU. And while I was there, I started a 501c3 nonprofit, Provo's first recycling company. And I was recycling homeless people and aluminum, paper, wood, pallets, and all stuff. So we had hired homeless people to recycle. So we had a crew of like 40 homeless guys that were my crew for our recycling business. And it was super fun. That's when I met my wife. She's like, all right, let me get this straight. You're almost 30. You don't have an undergraduate degree yet. I have no idea how long you've been in college. You haven't graduated. You don't have a job, and you hang out with the homeless all day long.
So what did she see in you then?
Potential. Potential. She actually never said that. She hates when I say that. But that's what was going through my mind.
Yeah.
So then I said, I need to get a job.
Yeah.
So we were just dating. And Mark Wolfgram, who was a friend of mine, said, hey, we need a product manager at our software company. Want to come interview for it? And I had created, I said, sure. So I went and I had created a little small software company in California right around the same time. It didn't work out. It was a tax office manager, and it was doing great. And then we had a bug that just had a massive data corruption on the database, and the thing went out of business overnight.
Wow.
I shipped a critical bug to all of our customers.
Oh my gosh.
So yeah.
And in those days, it was not easy to fix like today.
It was game over. We had shipped a patch, and then basically I had OEM deals in place, and I was a millionaire in my early 20s on paper, and then it literally killed the business overnight.
Wow.
So I came back to school. I said, I don't know what I'm doing. And I decided to go work for a company to go figure out the software business. And I worked for a company called Folio, which was the very first
famous Utah
very
company.
first text retrieval company. Technology came out of BYU, was invented in Utah. Kurt Allen was the founder with Brant Red and Mark Wolfgram, and it was Google before Google.
Game-changing search technology.
Yeah, it was amazing. And they were on DOS, and they hired me to be the product manager for Windows. How I got that job, I have no idea. Kurt, I will ever be grateful for that opportunity. Thank you.
Kurt was on our e-business advisor board and helped do a lot of cool things too.
Yeah. He was a visionary.
Yeah.
And so I ended up working with Kurt and those guys, and we owned reference publishing, legal and financial reference publishing in the world. We owned the niche. And the theory that I came in with, the reason they gave me the job was you just got to focus on something. You got to identify something and go deep on it. Find a niche and then find the next bowling pin and the next one. And because they had a horizontal technology and they're all things to all people. So I did analysis at the company where we identified all of the markets they sold into and all of the applications. And we came up with over 1,000 boxes of niches, verticals, and applications. And then I went back to all the historical revenue by market and application, and I ranked it. And the number, after reference publishing, the number 2 niche we had was IT knowledge management. And we owned the category, and the company really didn't even know we were playing in this space. And so I created a business plan inside the company to go own this next niche. And at the time, the company was being sold for the 3rd time. And they said, it was not interesting to us. And I said, can I spin this out? And they said, sure. So they gave me a license in technology. I took one of my team members, Don Langdon, came with me. And then Darren Lee, who was in sales there, and we founded Knowlix. And we raised money from Utah Ventures. Jim Dreyfus's first fund that he raised himself was Utah Ventures Fund 2. And then Dominion Ventures, Mike Lee, who was Darren's brother, gave us the intro to Dominion Ventures. And we ended up raising $5.4 million of a Series A round back in the day, which was groundbreaking because there was, when I founded Knowlix, before Jim closed his deal, there was about $14 million of total capital under management in the state of Utah. Mm-hmm. And then Jim closed his fund, which is about $60 million, which was the biggest fund Utah had ever seen by that point.
Yeah.
So I was the first deal of that fund, and I was the first exit in that fund, and Utah Ventures Fund too.
Because you exited quickly on that one.
19 months.
Yeah.
From launch to we sold to a public company in August of 1999.
Peregrine Systems?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then the stock doubled, and then they split, and then it doubled again. And so if you held the stock, which I ended up doing because I was in a lockup, you quadrupled your exit.
Yeah.
So it was kind of an interesting exit, became a really interesting exit.
Wow.
And I ended up going to cash in March of 2000.
It was the dot-com era.
Yeah.
And you went to cash in March of 2000 because that was a perfect time, wasn't it?
March 1st of 2000.
Oh, March 14th was the first day of the crash. I know that day well.
So March 1st of 2000, I sold everything I had and went to cash in the market. And
you're a genius.
Well, it's embarrassing why I did it. A couple of reasons. My dad, who I love dearly, said he was becoming a day trader. And he's thinking about it. And I said, Dad, we've never actually owned any stock in our family, have we? And I remember this saying from John D. Rockefeller said, when the Shoeshine Boys outside the stock market are giving you stock tips, it's time to sell.
Yeah. You know what? That's what I learned in the dot-com era, because the newspaper boy and the guy cutting lawn were starting to trade Qualcomm stock. Mm-hmm. Time to get out.
And then my CTO, Ian Stiles, at Knowlix, we had a lot of fun. He said, I'm a day trader now, and I think the market's topping, and this is my gift to you. And so I looked at those two things, and I thought, well, I have quadrupled my position. I have more money than I ever thought I would have, and it's not real.
Yeah.
And I just said, I am just,
I got to make it real.
I don't care. I mean, it's going up like crazy, but I locked it in.
Yep.
And at the same time, I was talking with Greg Warnock about creating a fund in the state to focus just on Utah.
Yeah.
And really just focus on Utah and not be embarrassed about Utah, but be all in on Utah.
And
what month and year did you so from Knowlix and that great thing, and then when did you start vSpring?
So that was vSpring. That
was vSpringCapital.
You and Greg Warnock at Extra.
So here's the early days was. So I sold in August. I had a lockup. So I was done basically in January.
Yeah.
And so Greg and I went skiing at the Wayne Brown Institute event, which is what I pitched my software company Knowlix at years ago. So we went to that event, and Wayne Brown was the founder of Utah Ventures. He was the very first VC in the state of Utah. And Jim Dreyfus was his associate at his fund. And then Wayne died in a plane crash, and Jim took over the fund and inherited the fund. And then he raised a little bit more money into that fund. So it ended up around $12 or $14 million total. And then at the same time, there was Wasatch Ventures, which is founded by Todd Stevens. And so you had those two funds in the state. And then the third source of capital in the state was Steve Grizzell at Utah Technology Finance Corp, UTFC.
Yeah.
And so I raised money from Utah Ventures and UTFC. I got turned down from Wasatch, and then Dominion Ventures out of San Francisco. That was my software company, Knowlix. And then, anyway.
And then vSpring, but from what month and year did vSpring start? And
Well-
and who were the founding?
It was
general
Greg and I.
partners?
It started with Greg and I.
You and Greg, okay.
Where Greg didn't believe I had an exit. Well, he invested in my company, Knowlix. He knew I had an exit. But he said, nobody believes you had an exit, Paul. I said, why? Because you don't have a nice car. I drove what did I drive? I had a Nissan Altima with no air conditioning and roll-up windows. And he goes, I will not be seen in any of your vehicles. he had this nice BMW 7 Series Gold, and so we drove in his car until I bought a car that pleased him. And so I'm like, is this car good enough? Or I just sat on my money for a year. I didn't do anything. I just basically I didn't know what I was doing, so I just basically did nothing. So Greg and I went and just started meeting with everybody in the ecosystem, anybody that would talk to us, trying to figure out what the niche, what the strategy. We did 140 meetings in the Utah entrepreneur ecosystem, trying to define what is the strategy that we should create, what was the need in the marketplace. So think of vSpring just as another startup.
Yeah.
And in fact, most of my funds were just another startup, identifying another problem in the marketplace and putting a product in place. So we ended up raising, we did an SBIC, and we raised $40 million of capital, and the government, we got 2-to-1 matching from the SBA. So it ended up being a $119.5 million fund, effectively $120 million fund.
Wow.
And then we had many great companies out of there. We did Altiris, we did Landis, we did ComScore, we did MetaConnect, we did Ancestry.com, which was my very first investment, and then Control4.
Wow.
So we had 6 big hits out of that fund.
And was that the largest fund at the time then, being raised out of Utah?
Yeah. It was
$100 million plus fund.
120 million.
And you also saved Alianza, right? Back in the day.
Oh my gosh. Well, we were the...
Yeah, I'm just saying that fund has to still be alive, I'm guessing.
Well, I think
have
Alianza,
you distributed stock?
Oh yeah, that fund's done multiple. I think Alianza came out a second fund.
Oh, it did? Okay.
Yeah. Because it was a BYU business plan.
How many funds did you do? 3?
We did 3 funds in Utah.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, okay. Great.
So Alianza was, I think, fun too, but it was a BYU business plan competition. Yeah. And I just funded Brian.
And said, I believe in you.
Yeah.
On this idea. And then we traveled down to Mexico, and we were going to do voice over IP in Mexico. We ended up selling that company to, I think, AT&T in Mexico.
Yeah.
So the first version we sold to AT&T. Then we came up with another idea. And by the way, Brian, if you're listening, I just remembered you owe me for the jazz suite when I brought the Mexican investors up for Alianza. I just remember that. You never paid me.
He's been on the podcast. Yeah. He's a great friend. He's such a good guy.
I love Brian.
Yeah, Brian's so great.
It's beyond good. He has this deep grit. And it is like he will not give up. It's like the Harmons.
Yeah.
They will not give up.
Survivability.
Yes, exactly. Neil and Jordan, that's it. No. Do not ever bet against the Brian Butlers and the Harmon brothers.
Never bet against them. They will keep going until they win.
Yeah.
So my question is that back when you started vSpring, what was in existence? Was it just Utah Ventures was the only competing fund?
Utah,
and
UTSC,
and you said that. Why vSpring? Why did you name it vSpring? What was vSpring?
The .com was available.
But I want to say something.
Venture Spring. The idea was just
like a launch pad.
Yeah.
So I'm coming off a massive success internet company, moved to Utah, and vSpring to me was really, really all about Utah and building the ecosystem here. And so I tip my hat to you for what I think vSpring, even the ones you didn't invest in, just the stuff you did to support the ecosystem, I think is a big part of why Utah is what it is today. And I really believe
that's very kind of you.
Yeah.
It was super fun. Through that process, we met. We were in the governor's office, Governor Levitt, pitching Governor Levitt the idea, and he brought his consultant in, Ed Ekstrom. And Ed was super annoying in the meeting because he kept finishing our sentences. Then I thought, this guy's pretty smart. So he said, come on in. He was a senior executive at Intel, so he joined us. And then my college fraternity, Scott Petty, was in Tau Sigma.
So those
with
like
us.
you, Greg, Scott, and Ed.
Yeah, and then we met. Then Ed introduced us to Dinesh.
Yeah, Dinesh.
And then we met with Dinesh, and he agreed to invest. And then we thought, maybe we'll pick up biotech. You want to be our biotech partner? He goes, sure. And he had sold his company, Theratech, for $350 million. and he was doing angel investing, and one of the kindest men you'll ever meet.
Oh my
Yeah,
gosh,
yeah.
Dinesh is amazing.
He is, and he and his wife Kalpana are amazing, and they support so many good initiatives. They built us schools back and hospitals back in their home country of India, and so anyways, it was a lot of fun. I learned a lot from Dinesh, and that was our team. We were way top heavy, five GPs. And the idea was you're going to be able to layer multiple funds and keep going and have lots of capacity.
How was that? How was the first fund 1 and 2 or 3?
Fund 1 was magic. We made great decisions. I was the optimist, and Greg managed the downside.
Yeah.
But we made really good decisions together. And so like consistently we had the magic going of that investment committee. We were able to see deals, argue about them. They're collectively the funds deals. Everything worked about that fund, and that was so fun. It was just so fun, and most of the companies we invested to, if not all of them, had not taken any venture capital. Most of them were bootstrapped and had not received any VC finance, except Ancestry. They had taken some rounds, but a lot of these were just bootstrapped plays. So we were coming into a cash-starved market, and our theory was Utah had the innovation capacity. In terms of invention, and great technologies come out of Utah, but they were all taken to Silicon Valley because there's no money here. Like the whole graphics industry came out of the University of Utah, and the company Evans and Sutherland here. But then the companies were just Sun Microsystems that was invented here. And so Ed Catmull was a student at University of Utah, founded Pixar. So you have huge inventions, but there was no capital. So innovation capacity. The next is entrepreneurship activity. Everybody in Utah has a startup in their garage. And so you have the highest, top 5 in the United States, new business starts per capita.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Top 5 in the United States. And so what was missing was the investment capacity. And Utah had a great business environment. So that was the thesis of the fund. And when we try to raise money, 0 people thought it was a good idea in terms of institutional investors, because they drive in the rearview mirror. They want to see that it's already happened. And so this was a new thing.
You commissioned a report one time, vSpring did. I don't know if you remember it, about Utah and the ecosystem pioneering spirit of Utah and how that contributes. And I read that report when I first kind of got to Utah. I don't know if you remember that.
I do remember it, yeah.
And that report kind of informed me a lot about how to think about venture and entrepreneurship in Utah, because it was a very good report.
Oh, thank you. Well, the idea was just add capital and it should grow, and it did. So we just basically gave anybody a chance to pitch us.
I was going to say, how did you determine what investments you were actually going to invest in? I know that you had the committee and all 5 of those GPs were kind of sitting around a table and saying, hey, let's do this. But like,
we had theories about where we're going to invest, but we just basically followed the deal flow in the market.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, back in the day, because capital was so scarce here in Utah, specifically within the state, like I would assume you saw basically everything within the state, and you were probably one of the top players in the state at that time with $120 million fund. You basically got.
When you say until Omniture went public and then was acquired by Adobe, in that frame, before that, it was an investor had more leverage compared to entrepreneurs, and then all of a sudden,
there was a famous moment in the fund.
Yeah.
Greg said, "We have oxygen; they need oxygen."
Yes. Yeah.
There was a big fight. Like, who's your customer? Is it the entrepreneur or is it the investor?
Yeah.
And so there's a big argument about who, because we're still figuring this out. Nobody should have given us any money.
Yeah.
We didn't know what the heck we were doing.
Yeah.
And they say it takes like 5 years and $50 million to train a VC.
Uh-huh.
So we were a bunch of operators, and we know how to build companies, but in terms of deploying capital, that was new.
Yeah.
And so we settled eventually. It was the entrepreneur. That was the customer, and we basically needed to be friendly. But you had ability to write your terms. You could do 2x liquidation preferences participating, and people would say okay.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until some of the Silicon Valley funds started coming along saying no,
we're not doing
which is what we wanted to happen.
Yeah.
But it also changed. But for
we had to play catch up.
Yeah.
Because we should have been more entrepreneur friendly. But you had some DNA in the fund of like, we're going to make money for our investors, and we have to return this capital.
Yeah.
So, and we didn't know, but we're
coming out of the Great Recession, though, it flip flopped. I mean, to where there was so much money coming into Utah that
Yeah,
it was.
there was yeah, you basically write your terms in the early days if whatever you wanted to do.
Yeah. And then it became very pro entrepreneur coming into 2012, 2013,
Which is how it
2014.
should have been in the beginning had we been smarter.
Yeah. When did vSpring you left and it became Signal Peak, right? When was that era?
So we raised 3 funds,
Okay.
and then during the second fund, one of the investors said, "Hey, any strategy, any place in the world, where do you want to go?" And we put one of our team members on this thesis of researching another strategy outside the United States, and we came up with Mexico as our thesis. And so we created a growth equity fund that the vSpring partners sponsored in Mexico called Alta Growth Capital. And we ended up launching that fund.
I remember, and I went on a trip with you one time to Mexico.
We did.
City,
We went to Mexico.
Mexico City.
We took the carry, some of the carry we got on the Ancestry exit, and we paid for a trip of mentors to go down to Mexico to mentor Mexican
about 40 entrepreneurs,
students. Yeah, 30 or 40, and that were
because hablamos español.
Un poquito. And that was a fun trip. We took a lot of guys down to mentor some entrepreneurs down there, and we did a 1-year mentor program of students that had received money from the perpetual
For
education.
years, I had some of those people I mentored on that trip still contact me.
Me too. I'm still friends to this day.
Yeah.
Wow.
So that was a lot of fun, and we did a lot of things in building the ecosystem back in the day, and
So
sponsored a lot.
that's
of
what
events.
took you away from vSpring was this new initiative down in Mexico.
No, we hired Scott McDonough went down there. We hired 2 partners in the country, and I was on the investment committee representing the fund. And then during that process, I got an invitation from the Mexican government to create the first venture fund in the country. And that's different. Like that is local knowledge. You got to be on the ground.
You put a lot of effort into that.
And so we ran the same process that we ran to get the Utah fund off the ground. I went down to Mexico.
You lived there.
Yeah, but we did 100+ meetings to figure out the strategy and where we should go. And we ended up creating the office in the northeast of Mexico in Monterrey. And we moved my family there in August 2009.
I remember when you brought that Mexican team here, and I met with them, and that was really cool.
And we would do these ecosystem tours. We'd bring the Mexican government officials and entrepreneurs to Utah, and let them experience the Utah ecosystem, so they could see what we're building. So we went from 1 venture fund in Mexico to over 100 venture funds now.
Yeah.
And then we helped change the laws so the pension funds could invest in the asset class, because that's when the U.S. venture industry took off in the 70s, when the pension funds could invest. So we changed the rules, and then we went and created the first fund of funds in Mexico called Northgate Mexico with my good friend Jared Stone and Brent Jones, Tommy Vardell, and Mark Harris.
Give us a sense for time. So
2009, I moved there.
Okay.
We did the first venture conference in Mexico. 2010. 2010 I moved there. I lied.
So when you moved
started
your
traveling
family
in
to
2009.
Monterrey, did you step down as a GP of vSpring?
I did not.
Okay.
You
were doing that. It was an initiative of vSpring too.
It was, and then vSpring. There was, let's just say, we kind of disagreed on direction.
Okay.
And so I ended up buying all of the Mexican funds out, and I just basically picked up their position in Alta.
Is that about the time Greg went with Alan Hall to Mercado?
No, he went before that. He went.
Oh, he went before that.
Yeah. He helped to raise Fund 2, and then he left right at that point to go create Mercado.
Okay.
With Alan.
But
Hall.
eventually you did leave, because then Ed and Scott stayed, and it became Signal Peak at some point. I just don't know the story.
So I left. So I was thinking I was going to be sticking with it, and practically speaking, the partner said you can't do both, and so we ended up splitting at that point.
Okay.
And so August 2010 we split, and then we had just raised Fund 3, so we hadn't really fully deployed.
Yeah.
We raised like $165 million in Fund 3.
Wow.
So they ended up deploying Fund 3 without me mainly.
Okay.
And I came, and then I managed the growth fund in Mexico. We ended up raising another growth fund, and then I did the venture fund in Mexico.
So in summary, I mean, incredible thing you did in Mexico, and I don't know if the listeners the full grasp of how you kind of really brought a lot of change.
Pioneering in
Because
Mexico.
before that, I had dabbled in Mexico with Steve Gibson and other things, just looking at, and I was really frustrated in Mexico because it lacked the layers that we have in the United States to make venture work. And what I view you as doing, and you tell me if it's right, is you were helping to create the necessary layers so that anybody, any inventor, any ambitious person could have a chance, because it seemed like there wasn't that structure where an ambitious young person who didn't have the right connections could make it. Am I saying it right?
It's absolutely true. I remember reading an article when I was younger about this entrepreneur in Mexico who had no place to turn. Nobody was going to fund him. And I just remember thinking, someday I'm going to go fix that. And when I got the invitation, I told Jenny, I said, we just got an invitation to go create an industry in Mexico that doesn't exist. And I said, it sounds fun. It'll make a great story. And so we ended up moving down there, and I sold my house in Utah. We went all in. And we identified 5 areas that Mexico needed to address, and then 30 specific recommendations. We did the same thing for Utah. Our list was 13 in Utah. So Mexico had 30. And then we just got after it, one after another. We just started going down the list and saying, okay, like in the early days in Mexico, you couldn't have minority shareholder rights. How do you have an investor who doesn't have minority shareholder rights? It wasn't a thing. And so Mexico changed the laws to create minority shareholder rights in structures.
That's the kind of thing amongst many that needed to happen. Yeah.
There was 30.
Yeah.
There were 30 things that needed to be fixed. And I started with President Fox. He flew out to Utah. We met with him here. And then when we went down there, I met with Enrique Peña Nieto, who would be the next president, but he wasn't president yet. We changed the category name to Capital Emprendedor. It was called Capital de Riesgo, so it's called Risk Capital. And we changed it to Entrepreneur Capital because the families didn't want to associate with risk capital.
Yeah.
It was like, you could have called it Nuclear Waste Capital and you would have been better off.
Yeah.
And so changing the name, rebranding it, creating the first venture conference, helping organize the ecosystem. And we took a playbook from Utah. A lot of things we did in Utah, we just took it down to Mexico. And remember we did the V100?
Yeah.
Yeah, we created the E100 in Mexico, identifying the top entrepreneurs in Monterrey or in Guadalajara.
V100, literally the best networking event I've ever seen held in Utah. Yeah.
Yeah, that was all Greg and Gavin and Dennis Wood.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, so they put that. I thought it was a stupid idea.
But it was good.
But I adopted it wholesale.
There you go. So you do the Mexican. There's so many other parts of your life. I don't know what you want to go into, but I also know I participated in something you did in Utah Jewish relations at one point.
Oh, yeah.
Also, your personal story a little bit with Jenny and what you did to, in an entrepreneurial way, attack a very bad disease. I mean, you tell me what you'd like to get into.
Well, I have something I'd like to get into. I like to get into your authoring of Nail It and Scale It and how that came to be and where that came.
It ties in the question that John just asked. So we moved down there. We were down there 1 year, and then we went home for the second summer on vacation. And then Jenny was diagnosed with a cancer called multiple myeloma. Mm-hmm. It's a bone cancer. It's a blood cancer that affects the bones. And there's no cure. So when I first looked it up, she had 22 months to live. And the median survival, because she had a very aggressive form of it, and the median survival, that's what I thought anyway. And the median survival is 5 years of that cancer. And so we decided I'd stay in Mexico with the kids because she had to go through these tandem back-to-back bone marrow transplants and couldn't be around anybody because she was neutropenic for 7-8 months. Like her immune system was nothing. And we had 6 little kids.
They said they live in a bubble.
Yeah. So you can't tell a little 2 or 3-year-old they can't go see their mom or hug her for 9 months.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not a thing. So I stayed in Mexico, and it worked out beautifully. I wouldn't have planned it this way, but I would go back and forth. And Jenny we set up a clean house in Utah for Jenny, and she had a caregiver around the clock, and I go back and forth. And so, I'm freaking out, right? And my wife may not make it, and I'm trying to get this venture industry off the ground. And so I couldn't sleep. And so I wrote a book. So that's how the first draft got written. I'd been working on it previously with Nathan Furr.
Yeah.
Gavin Christensen introduced me to one of his good friends, Nathan Furr, who's an entrepreneurship professor.
A colleague of mine at BYU.
At BYU. And And so I said, I have this thesis on a book, and I've been giving this speech for a while on this observations of why companies succeed. And some companies have this habit of winning over and over again. And so I documented what I had observed, and we used to vacation next to Stephen Covey. And I asked him how he wrote his books. He goes, well, I just basically give a speech, and if people want to pull the speech out of my hands, then I turn that into an article, and if that works, then I write a book. And so I started giving this speech, and then we wrote it up and documented and created articles around it, and that was actually how I ended up coming up with the bones of the book. And I gave it to Nathan, and he did, the heavy lifting on wrapping stories around it, and making it credible with real grammar. That he was a very talented writer. And so Nathan really, really, really did a nice job. Then he gave me a black cover version of it, which had lots of embarrassing stories in it. So I had to go through and edit and take all this stuff. I would get killed by telling the backstories of stuff.
Yeah.
And then that process, that back and forth process with Nathan was right around when Jenny had cancer. So then we self-published the first version on Amazon, and haven't touched it since. I can't believe it's still selling.
Wow.
Yeah. So Nathan Furr coming to Utah is a seminal moment in the theory and practice of entrepreneurship in Utah, I believe.
Yeah.
When he was, a protege of Steve Blank at Stanford as Blank as an adjunct professor, and then he gets his PhD, and BYU lands this all-star. He's an all-star. I mean,
he is the guy.
Yeah, an all-star PhD academically. But for the first 2 years, he didn't tell anybody about Lean Startup and Steve Blank because he was worried about, pushing it at BYU too heavily. And the day he told me about it, after he'd been there like 18 months, I go, Nathan, why didn't you tell me about this before? And I back tested my entire career against the theories he brought to BYU.
Interesting.
And I go, this explains every single success and every single failure. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so that's why I went hog wild and became completely. And that next summer, I had BYU throw out all its curriculum and go all in.
What years were those?
2009, 2010.
Yeah, those are the exact times we were writing the book.
Yeah. And he finally, I said, he actually, as a new professor, you don't want to come in and tell people who've been there 10, 20 years, here's how it's done, right? But he needed to.
Yeah.
Well, it was interesting. I hadn't heard about the Lean Startup. The book was not out.
Yeah.
We actually published our book before Lean Startup came out.
Yeah.
If you look at the dates of publishing on Amazon, we were earlier. So I didn't have a copy of it. I didn't see it. And we write the book and then hit the first published version of it. And then Nathan gets an early copy of Lean Startup. He goes, oh, crap.
Yeah. But guess what?
Guess what? I said, what? He goes, it looks like we copied their book. I said, well, good thing we published it first.
but Lean Startup by Eric Ries is a conceptual book. And Nail It and Scale It, just like Steve Blank's later book, the Startup Owner's Manual, are how to do it books.
Yeah.
And
the
it's
process of launching.
Nail It and Scale It. If you want to do it, you get Nail It and Scale It. Eric Ries's book is sharing the concepts.
Well, up until Nail It and Scale It was written, every single startup book was a theory book.
Yes.
Yeah.
Of theories and practices around this. And I'll tell you the history.
And that's why I just want you to know, Nathan told me he's so excited to be doing it with you because nobody had done a true how-to book.
And here is how it came about. So I was working with Kurt Allen at Folio, and the internet comes along. And my brother Marv tells me about the internet. I'm like, well, that's pretty interesting. He goes, you should check out this thing called the World Wide Web. and so I was the product manager, and we're just basically getting to Windows.
Right.
And this thing comes along, and it was the early 90s. So there was an article in Forbes magazine that said the first victim of the internet, and it has a picture of the chairman of Reed Elsevier, Nigel Stapleton, on this article. And you can look it up on the internet. And so we get a call, and he's the parent company that bought LexisNexis, purchased us. So we're 3 levels down. So we get a call because we're the only PC company that has any knowledge about this internet thing. We get a call. What the hell is the internet, and why am I a victim? So he gave us $7 million to go research this thing called the internet. And how are they going to not be a victim of it? So Kurt and I put 1 million miles on Delta in that next 2 years. I mean, literally, we're 1 million miles in 2 years. We're all over the planet, meeting with everybody, trying to figure out what this new thing called the internet meant and how we're going to respond to it. And so at the end of that, we had $3 million left over. And we got a phone call from Bill Gibbons, our CFO. I said, I got a call from the office. They said, get rid of the $3 million by year end. I said, what does that mean? Get rid of it. I commit it, spend it, just get rid of it. So I got to go hire anybody I wanted on the planet because I had Brewster's Millions and I had to get rid of them. So I called Regis McKenna. We hired the McKenna Group. Jeffrey Moore, who had created the book Crossing the Chasm and then Inside the Tornado.
Yeah.
And his secretary's named Angelique, and she would not give me access to him. I said, listen, Angelique, I got a problem. I have a truckload of cash I have to get rid of by December, and I want to give as much of it to Jeffrey as humanly possible. She goes, yes, sir. I had his phone number up in Tahoe at his cabin. I had his mobile, and we met in Sky Harbor Airport in Arizona, and we started a friendship. And I was he said, okay, what is the process to get across the chasm? Like, I have unlimited budget. If you can just teach me. And he goes, so he comes out to Utah and he goes, I don't know. Crap, if you don't know, nobody knows. He goes, and he said, I think it's a management problem. I said, no crap, Sherlock. I mean, but what's the process?
Yeah.
So we didn't spend much money with him because he didn't know. And we went to the next group. We went to the next group and next group. And I literally burned through everybody on the planet that claimed to be an expert, and nobody knew. So I said, that's my new mission. I'm going to figure out the process of how you get from point A to point B. And so that was my thing.
Yeah.
And so based on all that research, I pieced together all of that into a model and I used Regis McKenna's relationship marketing book and this stuff that nobody's ever read. And we basically pieced it together to say, okay, this is my hypothesis. Then I quit and I used the hypothesis to go create Knowlix, and it worked beautifully.
Yeah.
The most fun that any of us have ever had in a startup was that process. Steve Grizzell said it was the best business plan he's ever seen in his entire career. Yeah. And I don't think he's blowing smoke at me because I ended up becoming the godfather of his son, Silas. I mean, we became really good friends.
Yeah.
And so all those theories packaged up and observations, we just basically packaged into a book. So I had that in my hand when I met Nathan. And I said, this works. And he goes, that's remarkably like the stuff that Steve Blank is doing, but except it wasn't a process.
Yeah.
Right.
And so that was basically, so I had the skeleton and then Nathan did the yeoman's effort on it. I'm not going to lie. I mean, I'm an okay writer, but Nathan's a brilliant writer.
Right.
Yeah.
And I was amazed by his ability to just put that thing together.
Yeah.
And when we adopted at BYU and throughout the old curriculum went all in on lean startup, nail it and scale it type processes. BYU was good before, but right after that, if you look at from 2010 through 2015, the companies coming out of BYU student entrepreneurs were amazing.
Well, all the unicorns in Utah are out of BYU.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean,
and it's not the tech commercialization office.
No,
it was the entrepreneurship
the
school.
Students.
Yeah,
and it's undergraduate students.
I remember,
and you have a 1 in 66 chance of launching a unicorn in Utah. So out of every 66 venture-backed companies, one turns into a unicorn. Stanford did a study. We're the number one in the United States.
Yeah.
And that's all out of BYU.
Yeah. Crazy.
I just remember going to school and Nail It and Scale It was like a Bible a little bit when Nathan Furr was there and I was
Tyler's
learning the whole
were the Great Recession years.
Yeah, it was.
That's a great time to go to school, man.
And I came out of school and I just remember learning all these principles like they were just around for decades, 100 years. Like, oh, this is just how you build business. No, that was literally being created.
But imagine being let down by all of the gurus in the space. You're thinking these guys are it.
Yeah.
And then I was like, I will pay you unlimited money.
And they couldn't do anything for you.
We couldn't spend all the money, so we'd have to give it back at the end of the year.
Yeah. Tyler didn't raise a penny for Dev Mountain. 4 years.
Yeah.
Sold to $1 billion company.
The principles work. Okay, so to summarize this whole Nail It and Scale It segment of the podcast, what are you telling the early entrepreneurs, like the main principle in the book? Like what do they need to know? Like what will intrigue them to say, go and read this book? Because I read it. I loved it. It was amazing.
Basically, the number one cause. So this came out of the Startup DNA project. Again, thank you, Nathan.
Yeah.
But the number one cause of startup failure is premature scaling.
The Startup Genome Project. If
Startup
people want-
Genome, yeah. Startup Genome
I was a data collector in two of this.
Yes,
things.
Startup Genome. Right. And it's still going, by the way.
It is,
The
yeah.
website's still out there, and it's a great resource.
And their first white papers found. Yeah, go ahead.
So premature scaling was the number one cause of failure. What I learned later is the number one cause of startup success. Yeah. Okay, I'm going to quiz you guys on this. What do you think the number one indicator of startup success is?
From the start, I should know this. From the startup, I know that.
I gotta say, customer discovery and customer research.
Reasonable answer.
Yeah. What is it? Well, tell us.
It is premature scaling
Yeah,
is
is
the
the
number one
great
cause of
enemy.
failure.
Yeah.
Timing.
Oh, timing.
Timing.
Yeah, cycles.
So
Oh my gosh, timing. Yep.
yeah. So Bill Gross did this study of all these startups, and then there was like a really bad idea in 1985 and 1992. It killed it, and he's just like,
We teach this.
it was timing.
Yeah.
It was timing, and so just knowing, when getting that timing right, and those because one of the great questions investors ask is, why now?
Yes.
Why now? Oh, and you need to understand how these factors came together. So why can it work now when it didn't work later?
Yep.
Yeah.
So why now is the question, and timing is the answer. And now somebody gave me a better answer this week, and I think I like this one better. It's the founder,
Yeah.
and because if the founder doesn't quit, timing doesn't matter because they're just
They'll
gonna,
last through the cycle.
they're going to power through it.
Yeah. If you look at it though, I here's my view. The cycle's like this, right? If you shifted a mega successful company, one half a cycle shift, it might not have made it.
Yeah.
100%.
Yes.
Over and over and over again.
Yeah.
So it is these factors came together.
Yeah.
My software company, Knowlix, the reason it worked is because the 486 processor became a thing, and we could do a sub 3-second search on the desktop to find an answer to a help desk. And it was too long before, and they wouldn't wait for it. As soon as the 486 processor came along, we could do a 3-second search, and it was fast enough. And we could take it from $250,000 spend to create a knowledge management system for our company to $179 for the desktop.
Yeah.
Orders of magnitude cheaper and faster. And it was hit the CD, download, go,
Yep.
versus 6 months and $250,000. So we had orders of magnitude value creation, and it was the processor speed tied to the Folio technology that made it fast.
Yeah. So what are the indicators that you're seeing when now timing is right? Like if I'm building something, some kind of innovative technology or some kind of software, what would you give to the entrepreneur advice of here's how you know when timing is right versus when timing is wrong? Because I feel like there's so many different factors that play into what that example you just gave. You just have to be in the know. You have to be in the market. You have to be on top of technology. You have to
That's the definition of luck.
It's luck.
It's when preparation meets timing.
Yeah.
That's my favorite definition because you don't know. You're just like, you're going to shoot. You think it's a good idea. And sometimes there's something that's just missing in the marketplace. Usually if something's not working, I say you go to the team. Is there a hacker, a huckster, and a hopeful? Is there a visionary? Is there a salesperson? Is there an engineer? Are you missing some capacity on your team? So if I'm not getting traction, but then sometimes there's a broader, macro or technology question. But the question that I'm thinking about right now is I don't know if nail and scale is relevant anymore. Like I think it is, but the market changed. For 10,000 years, we were an agrarian economy.
Yeah.
And then it became, value came from our labor on the ground. And then it shifted to industrial economy. Value came from machines driving it, not from our physical labor. And then we shifted to a services economy. Value came from not selling things, but from providing services to people. Yeah. Then we went to a knowledge economy. Value came from the brain.
Yeah.
And that seemed like an unlimited, because our brain's not limited. Well, now we're in AI space, and that was like 1,000 years, 200 years, 50 years, 40 years, and now we're in the AI space. And so it's leverage what you know, and leveraging this capability. I think this is going to last 10 years. The segment we're in right now is moving so fast. We're going to move to the next phase within about 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years, which is the autonomous economy, and where it's agentic. So no longer are people, because we're still getting paid for doing things, even though we're leveraging knowledge. The next phase is people won't get paid. It's robots that get paid. It's the autonomous agents. And so the value that's going to be created is not going to come from labor. It's going to come from the agentic AI, and that's going to create, then the value flows back to the cap table. So the cap table and the investors are going to make all of the money. So wealth is going to be hyper concentrated because humans aren't going to be working in many of these industries. And you say, oh, it's not going to happen. Oh, it's already happening.
Yeah.
Major law firms are hiring 1/3 less this year because of AI, their new class.
Right.
Just look at what major top Titan tech companies have lowered thousands on their hiring because of AI. So that's happening. People are still working, but now that next move is going to make a shift. So if that's going to be the world we're living in, what is the model for that world? I still think these principles apply. But so we just took a company public a few weeks ago called Angel Studios. And I've looked at what Angel has built and their model. It's pretty amazing. They build quickly, basically generate the hypothesis, because you can build so fast now. They just get it in front of a customer and they just listen and iterate, listen, iterate. So my son built an application. He's 18 years old, never coded a day in his life. Has an idea. I offer him a family startup grant. He turns it down because I don't need it, Dad. He goes and learns how to use Claude from Anthropic, Claude 4.0, now 4.5. He builds an application in 2 weeks, 10,000 lines of code. Amazing app. Never having coded.
Yeah.
So he didn't need a nickel. So if you can do it that fast and that cheap, then you can put something in front of a customer and get them to respond to it. That would have been $250,000 in a minimum of 6 months.
Yeah.
Minimum.
Yes.
Under 2 years ago. Probably 8 months and more, maybe $500,000 to get where he got with one coder, never doing it and building it and prototyping. And it's not prototyping, it's a finished product. It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
So our ability to iterate has never been cheaper and faster. And we have all these stacks, of infrastructure building on top of.
Right.
This one is mind bending.
Yeah.
Yes, it is. It is. I agree with you on a lot of that. I think that it's going to be definitely a transition, but whether it's 6 years, 8 years, 10 years, 12 years, we don't know that.
Yeah.
But it's going to happen.
But it is timing. That is what we've learned.
Yeah, timing.
Okay, Paul.
Wait, yeah. Do we got to end it?
Yeah.
I know. We're over time. I wanted to just thank him for being on here because it's such good. We could have spent 5 hours.
Yeah. No. Paul's story is about, proving a market's there, listening to timing, building internationally, going global, taking advantage of opportunities that you see within your own ecosystem, being investor ready, everything. You are an OG. You are literally one of the ground laying persons of Utah Tech, Utah VC.
I have a grain of rice to put on the heap.
There you go.
No. And obviously for early founders, I think the lesson is clear. Obviously, nail and scale it is still very relevant to today, but pay attention to what's coming down the pipe. There's a lot of new technology, a lot of innovations, and we are in an AI era that I do think is going to last. And the next era, I do think, is going to be automation and agentic, like you said. Yeah. And we got to look for opportunities around that corner.
And look at the DNA of the Utah startups. You have, I just did analysis of all the 20 plus unicorns in Utah. And 90% of those are global. So think big, think global.
Think globally.
None are Utah-centric.
Yep. There's
a few that are U.S.-centric, but most of them are multi-country or global.
That's awesome. Operating global, building huge ecosystems. Okay, so thank you, Paul. We really appreciate you coming on the podcast. And this is it for this episode. And thank you for Paul for dropping all the knowledge that he has. And go read his book. Go look him up. Go follow him on LinkedIn. He drops awesome wisdom and knowledge. Go read Tech Buzz, everything that he's doing. Support Paul and everything that he's doing. And thank you so much. And we are out for this episode.